USA listeners. Welcome back to Muskeg Tea with Chantel G. Trigger warning for listeners. This episode is going to be intense, and but at the same time, it's going to bring some good medicine, not only for us but for our listeners as well. I just hope that this episode will encourage others to share their stories, share their experiences. Being an indigenous person, we're faced with a lot of struggles, and those struggles aren't ours. I just wanted to say that. And my guest today is Cheylynn Large. I met her at a conference in Calgary back in January, but we attended school together at Blue Quills University, and we crossed paths numerous times, like walking through the hallway or seeing each other at culture camp. Nicole Jackson introduced us at the conference, and I'm so glad she did. Shout out to Nicole. She's one of our matriarchs in Saddle Lake. She's doing some great work right now with our Indigenous youth. Shout out to you, girl. Keep doing what you're doing. So she introduced us, and Nicole mentioned that she had a story to share. I'm really excited and happy to have Cheylynn join me today. Go ahead, the floor is yours. Introduce yourself. Where are you from? Who are you?
Thank you, Chantel. I'm really happy to be here today as well. I'm excited to share my story. My name is Cheylynn Large, and I am from Saddle Lake Cree Nation. I am 31, going on 32 next month. Happy early birthday to me. Like Chantel said, we've definitely crossed paths a couple times at Blue Quills. We met in Calgary. It's an honor to be a part of your podcast. I guess I do have a story, and I haven't really shared it with a lot of people. I'm a little nervous, but I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm going to start from the beginning. I grew up in the system, child welfare, from age 2 until I was 22 years old. My mom was a young mom when she had me. She was 14 years old. She grew up in the system as well. Her mom, my late cookum, passed away when she was 4 years old. My mom had a pretty rough upbringing. From what I recall and what my mom has shared with me, I know she's only shared a few things, but they're still pretty traumatic. And my mom was sexually abused from her own family members, and I believe that's a part of why she went into the system. Her sharing that with me, it kind of helped me understand who she is and what happened, like why she wasn't there for all those years when I was in care. She didn't share this until I got older, in my late 20s. It's all still very new to me. I'm just grateful she was able to share that. So she had me when she was 14. She was really poor. She moved back with my late Muslim, her dad. They had a little small house in Duck Lake, which is in Saddle Lake. She moved there with me when I was just a newborn. I remember she said she had it really rough there. She wanted a better life for me and her. So she wanted to move to Vancouver, to my late Auntie Violet's place and her husband. We ended up moving over there when I was 2. My mom ended up meeting a man over there. He was a drug dealer. He drank a lot. He drugged a lot. My mom ended up getting into drugs badly as well. There was a lot of domestic violence that happened in that relationship. One of my first traumatic memories is my mom getting beaten up. I remember it was like a basement suite. I was standing on the stairs, and I could see like a light, like a lamp light, and I could just hear things smashing, my mom crying. And so that's kind of one of my first memories. When I was 26, I got my FOIP documents. I read, which confirmed that memory, because I always thought it was like a dream. You don't really know if they're a memory or a dream, especially if you go through traumatic things at a very young age. One of the first things in the beginning of why I was apprehended in 1995 was because of domestic violence and the drug use. A lot of it in there said that my mom had a lot of mental health issues. She had to get assessed in order to have visits with me. It was a really long document to read about her mental health, and that too is, till this day, it's like hard to talk about it. But anyway, when I was 2, I lived in a foster home in Vancouver for 1 year until I was 3 with a white lady. Saddle Lake didn't know that I was apprehended. My mom didn't share that with anybody. She actually moved back to Saddle Lake without me. I was in care for that 1 year. She moved back. So it wasn't until my Auntie Violet or somebody ended up reaching out to family members in Saddle Lake. And my Auntie Louise Large, she was a new social worker. This is like the story that she told me. This is words from my Auntie Louise. So what had happened was my Auntie Louise Large, she was a new worker at Wagutua in Saddle Lake. They found out that I was in care in Vancouver, and she flew out to Vancouver, went to court for me, and fought for me to come back home. If it wasn't for her, I would be still in Vancouver, lost in the child welfare system out there. I don't know where I'd be today. But I'm very grateful that my Auntie Louise Large fought for me, went to court out there for me, and got my file transferred and brought me back home. The story is, when she brought me back home, she kept me in her care for a bit, but social workers weren't really allowed to keep kids, family or not. Eventually, I did go into group homes, kinship homes, and this is where my story kind of gets a little hectic. I'll just lay out a big timeline. All the homes that I've ever been in, kinship homes, foster homes, group homes, and lockdown facilities. So altogether is 43. And that's in my FOIP documents. I never knew the exact number because the trauma, again, like I feel like I have like brain fog, or, you know, I just can't remember everything. Aside from that, another thing that kind of bothers me is 18 schools, 18 different schools that I've been to. Thankfully, I'm a smart girl. I found that out when I was at Blue Quills of all the schools I've been through. I never graduated with my diploma because always moved home to home to home. I grew up a very, transient lifestyle. And not because I chose to, but that's my story. That's how it ended up being. In those times of being in care in all those homes, I experienced a lot of trauma. I've been sexually abused, going on home visits to my family. Another one of my very early memories, traumatic memories, is my first cousins. They sexually assaulted me. I remember that vividly. Back then, growing up, thinking about it, I couldn't put the faces together. But as I got older and after I got sober, I started praying to Creator. I wanted to remember things, and now I could put a face to a name, and I know who my abuser was in those early years. Sexual abuse stories from my mom and my aunties, it runs in my family, and it's sad. It affects people different. I'm not really going to say how my mom feels today, but I know that she's healing too, and I'm grateful she was able to share that with me, because again, that's how I can understand my mom and why I grew up in care. Those home visits with my mom, they weren't all so bad. Like, that happened a handful of times when my mom wasn't around on those visits, but the good memories that I have with my mom when I was little, she'd always have goodie bags. I used to love those bags full of little toys, candy. She always came to a visit full of surprises for me. So those were one of my favorite memories of my mom and our visits. I grew up in a lot of kinship homes, so my mom's first cousins, my late Muslim Lawrence Large, his sister Ernestine Large White, her married name was White and her birth name is Large. My cookum, she had me from when I was 4 until I was 6. So I lived with her for 2 years of my young life, and I loved my cookum. That was like the best home I was ever in. She was like probably the closest person to me of ever having an experience of that motherly love. Until this day, I miss her a lot. But I remember my late cookum getting sick. I was a very troubled child. So already, even before moving in with my cookum at 4, I already been through so many homes. Yeah, I lived with my auntie for a bit, but after her, I moved around quite a bit. And when I moved in with my cookum, I had already been in how many homes? So I was really troubled. I gave my cookum a hard time. She had a full-time job at the health center. I think she was like a nurse or something. She worked Monday to Friday, so I was always at my auntie's house and my uncle's house, and they helped my cookum raise me a lot of the time. I have good memories there with my aunties and my uncles, with my cookum. But in that time of my cookum having me in her care, My mom was going to court for me, and that's another part that I read in my FOIP documents. I was still having visits with my mom. At that time, I wanted to live with my mom. Like, any child would want to live with their mom, right? Especially at that age. I was kind of looking forward to it, but my kukum ended up getting sick when I was 6 years old. And I remember it was such a traumatic day. Like, being taken out of my kukum's home and brought to my mom is one of the worst memories I've ever had. I remember we lived in the town site at my Auntie Tracy White's, me and my kukum. We had a room. And all of a sudden, I remember my Auntie Tracy and my kukum. They were packing my clothes really fast, and they're like, oh, you gotta go. You're gonna get picked up. You're gonna go to your mom's house, and you're gonna live with her. I don't know why, but I just cried. Even though I thought I wanted to live with my mom, I cried so hard. I didn't want to leave my kukum, but it was court ordered. My mom wanted me in court, and I didn't know that at the time. I was still so confused. At the time, I thought my kukum didn't want me anymore. My kukum was angry. It was hard for her to show her emotions. It just seemed like she was more angry and just letting me go. So I couldn't understand it. I thought she was letting me go, or I thought she didn't want me. I remember holding on to the door and the caseworker just pulling me off, and that was the last time that I see my kukum. But yeah, I ended up moving in with my mom. It was a long ride to the city. My mom had an apartment in the city with her then boyfriend. My little sister, she's the second oldest. I'm the oldest. She was just a newborn at the time. So in the FOIP documents, it said that I only lived with my mom for 3 weeks. In those 3 weeks, every night I kept trying to run away. I would pack my little backpack and I would pack my Barbies and I'd try to go run away because I wanted to move back to my kukums. Sorry.
Yep. Okay. I'm sorry that you had to experience that. It's really harsh. And you explaining that, it makes me think of that one painting where the RCMP are ripping our children from the parents. And it all stems down to the residential school system, right? Don't be sorry for crying, because that's our way of healing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of intergenerational trauma that we've gone through. And it's this generation that are taking those steps to break it. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. It's not easy. You're an inspiration, honestly. We've gone through so many different things, but like a phoenix, we rise. We rise out of that fire and we do better. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you've shared so far. Your tears are valid.
Thank you very much. My mom wasn't a bad mom. She worked hard to get me back. I realize that now, but at that time, in my mind, at 6 years old, if I keep trying to run away to my kukum, maybe I'll get to go live with her. But that wasn't the case, because little did I know my kukum was sick. She had cancer. I didn't understand that at the time. So trying to run away every night, if anything, it just put stress on my mom. She just had a newborn baby. It wasn't a good time for my mom. I feel like she made the best decision that she thought was good for me. And so what she did is she called child welfare in Saddle Lake and she explained what's happening. I remember they started transitioning me into a foster home, not my kukum's home, but into a urban Indigenous foster home. I started doing home visits there. A worker would come pick me up, or a driver pick me up, would bring me to this lady's house. She was Indigenous. There was 3 kids in the home. There was another little boy, same age as me, and then another little girl, same age as me, and her other daughter, who was a little bit older than me. It was good. I enjoyed those visits because we always had fun. And then they moved me right in. But at that time, for some reason, I was okay with it. I was so used to not living with my mom that I was okay with it. So yeah, I moved in that foster home, and that was probably the longest foster home I've ever lived in my entire time in care. So from 6 till I was 10. That was the most abusive home that I've ever been in my entire life as well. The worst experience ever. I learned later on that that lady had addictions too, and that she was in residential school. I learned about her trauma. I learned why it was the way it was in her home, I had to learn that in order for me to heal. She was a residential school survivor. I believe her late mom was a residential school survivor. I don't want to make things up, but I'm just trying to think of that timeline. But I know for a fact she was a residential school survivor. There was me and another boy that lived in that foster home. He lived in there longer than I did. So me and him, we both got physically abused. Like, I want to go into depth of it, but just for out of the respect for her and her family. I respect them. I healed from that. Today, I hug her and I, say hi to her, right? Yeah, a lot has happened in that home. It really messed me up. It really messed up my foster brother. But a lot of that stems from residential school. I understand that now. Actually, speaking of that, I just want to honor my foster brother. He recently just passed away about a couple months ago in the wintertime. He struggled with addictions. He became schizophrenia from the drug, what's that called? Drug-induced psychosis. That had happened to him a few years ago. I remember bumping into him on the street. He didn't even know who I was. He was talking to himself. I know he had a lot to work on, but he had a really tough life. So, like, trauma, abuse, the things that you go through affects people differently. Sometimes they get stuck and it gets worse and they make it out in a traumatic way. But yeah, I just want to honor him and send my love to him. During that time in that home, even though all the abuse was happening, I still loved her. I still cared about her, like, because I was there for so long. But yeah, it's just really sad now that I think about it, because her being lost into her addictions at the time, I was so young, I didn't understand that. Thank God I asked and reached out to people to understand her, because that's helped me a lot recently. After that, what stemmed me to move out of her home, what got to the point of me being free from that abusive home, it was not the best home. Even though I have that respect for her today, I wouldn't want any child to go in a home like that ever. I was in grade 4. It was Valentine's Day. I remember I wanted to stay after school for this Valentine's dance that we were having for grade 4. And I remember just sitting in my chair. It was the end of the day, and I was sad. I knew that I wouldn't be able to stay after school, because we were never allowed to do things like that. Like, we were so, like, sheltered to doing fun things out in the community. That was one of them, not being able to do after school activities. And I remember just sitting in my desk, and I just started crying, and I was, like, stuck in my chair. I didn't want to move. And I think I just had it. At that point, I just started crying. The teacher asked me what was wrong. I remember just bawling my eyes out and just having that panic attack, because I knew if I cried, she would threaten us too. If you tell anybody what I do, like, then they're not going to believe you, because you're just a foster kid or you're just FAS. That's another thing too. I believed I was FAS. Anyway, I remember hyperventilating, crying, and I knew I was scared to go home. At this point, I'm like, hey, I'm really going to get in trouble. I really can't go home now. My teacher went and grabbed the principal, and they came, and finally they calmed me down, begged them. I said, please don't let me go home. I told them what's going to happen. And I think they kind of knew, because there multiple times I probably went to school bruised up, because that's how bad the abuse was. It was no secret. And I was so traumatized too. Like, even just somebody walking behind me, I would flinch. Like, that's how bad the abuse was. And it was like that for years after being moved out of her home. What had happened is they stuck up for me. They made sure I did not go home. They called child welfare, because probably was in my file at school that I am a foster kid. After school, I got picked up by my social worker. She brought me all the way to Saddle Lake, and I never ever went back to that home. So that's the day that I moved out of that home. From there, foster home to foster home, group home to group home, until I was 11 years old. In that little 1 year of being back on the res, just different homes, different places. And why I was moving around is because I didn't want to be there. So I would always make trouble, and then I would get kicked out, or I would be like, hey, come pick this girl up. She's not listening. So at that point, I started learning how to work the system. When I was 11, I got moved. My social worker, she's like, hey, I'm bringing you to this home. It's a nice foster home in Mundare, out in the country. That's where you're going to live. It was a white family. There was 9 foster kids. I'm the 9th foster kid. And they were 2 really old white people. I'll use their name because they're amazing. Rick and Francis Thornton. That was the best foster home I ever lived in my entire life, aside from my Lake Cookham. But in that home, late Rick, he passed away too, like a year ago. He got me into hockey. It was a family full of hockey. Like all the older kids, including myself, the 2 older boys and the other older girl, all 3 of them, they played ice hockey, minor hockey. When I moved in, literally the first week, he put me in hockey and I didn't know how to skate. I had no idea what to do. But he put me in hockey right away. I ended up learning how to skate and I loved it there. He always had these seasonal hockey Oilers tickets. If we did our chores, if we were good at school, he would pick 2 of us to go with him. I went to many NHL games with him. Best memories ever. Even in the summertime, the 2 summers that I lived with him were the best summers of my life. It was just an amazing experience. But as the 2 years went by, being 13, one of the older foster brothers came into my room and he started doing things to me. That was the breakdown in that home. It really messed me up. I started cutting and trying to kill myself. I was in grade 7 at the time. I was in school and really trying to hurt myself. I remember those flavored Tylenols. I stole a bottle of that from the home and I brought it to school. I drank a bunch of water and I swallowed all those pills. I ended up throwing up in school and going home. Finally, one day at school, I was like, hey, even though I loved them, I didn't want to be in that home anymore because of that. I ended up walking to a church in Vegreville and talking to a priest. I ended up telling him who I was, where I lived, and what's going on. I told him I was a foster kid, and he said, can I call your social worker? So this priest and the other lady who was there both reached out to my social worker, and she came and picked me up. She brought me back to Saddle Lake. And again, home to home to home. I was 13 until I was 14. I ended up meeting my daughter and my son's dad. Once I met him, I fell in love instantly. Started running away to be with him. And because of me running away to be with him, that's when I started going into lockdown systems. I went into Bosco Home. That's where I found out I was pregnant at 14. And I was 12 weeks. I AWOL'd from Bosco Homes, which is just outside of Elk Island. I ran away from there with 2 other kids at the time. We literally had no shoes. We put pads at the bottom of our feet, bunch of socks. It was winter time. We ended up hitchhiking and these 2 guys picked up all 3 of us and drove us all the way into Sherwood Park. From there, I jumped on a bus. I was determined to go see my kid's dad. I miscarried at his auntie's house where we were staying together. That was like another traumatic event for me. A baby at 12 weeks. It was my first pregnancy. That time in the Bosco home, I felt like I was connected with the baby. Even though I was so young, I was so happy. I was writing down names in my journal. I was excited. Anyway, I ended up miscarrying. I hemorrhaged so bad, the ambulance had to come pick me up at his auntie's. It was really bad. So I got brought to the Royal Alec. They did a lot of blood tests. They called my social workers, because they knew I was in care. He didn't come with me. That really broke my heart. It made me such an angry person that he didn't come with me. He slept through most of me hemorrhaging. He called 911 for me, but he didn't come with me. While I was in the hospital, they did the blood test. I found out that I had chlamydia. That's when I found out that he cheated on me. That really messed me up. I caught my first STD, and that was very traumatic for me. I had so much revenge, losing the baby, finding out he cheated on me. I hated him. At that point, my caseworker didn't put me back in Bosco Home. They put me in a really cool group home in Edmonton. It was a really awesome program that they had there. I was doing really good. I was playing hockey again. I was in grade 10. I was going to Emmy Lizard in Londonderry area. I made some friends. Things were going really good for me. Workers were happy for me. I got my first job. I worked at McDonald's on the Yellowhead Trail. It was just a cool experience. And then eventually I crossed paths with him. I couldn't resist at the time. I ended up getting back with him. Like, I ended up forgiving him. I think it was like 15. We ended up drinking a lot together. That's when the abuse came. I was the one who initiated that first hit. I remember it was at Coliseum Station. I had a lot of resentment towards him. When I would drink, that anger would come out. And I ended up slapping him. And he took off, he ran away. That's how the relationship started becoming really toxic. So in that time frame of me living in the group home, so the worker put me in Regina. One day I came back from my AWOL to come grab clothes. My workers were there and they had all my stuff packed, and they literally forced me in the van and they drove me all the way from Edmonton to Rancho. I ended up staying at that place for 4 months. And again, I ran away from that place, even though it was like 30-40 minutes outside of East Regina. I ended up calling Dayton, my kid's dad. He's like, I miss you. And that feeling of missing him was coming back. I feel like I was trauma bonding. So him, I would do anything for him. I would run away through a forest just to go be with him. It was probably really unhealthy for me, but I survived and I'm here today, thank God. So this young girl that I was roommates with there at Ranch Urlo, we were planning to run away. It was at night, springtime, so it was warm, but we hid because we knew they were looking for us. They were driving up and down. Police were looking for us. That's why we went through the field. But it was probably the scariest thing ever because you could hear the animals around us. But thank God, Creator must have been watching over us because they didn't come near us. Like, even though we heard coyotes, they didn't even near us. But anyway, this young girl that I was a roommate, she was from Winnipeg. And she was a year younger than me. She was 14, I was 15. She told me about her story. She was into prostitution. She told me since she was 11, she was doing needles. Anyway, she's like, don't worry, when we get into Regina, I'll make money for us and we'll go to Edmonton. That was our plan. We ended up going into Regina and we were on AWOL. We knew where to go and I just followed her and we made friends quickly. You know, we were safe, people kept us safe, and she did what she did. She made her money. She made enough money for me. I jumped on a Greyhound bus with no ID or no nothing, and she sent me back. I remember being drunk and jumping on that Greyhound and going all the way to Edmonton. Got to Edmonton. Who do I go looking for? My kids, like the love of my life at the time. I find him. We end up living with each other. I didn't call the workers until a month after being in the city because we were staying with his dad. It was his dad's house. His mom at the time was an addict. So it was basically his dad taking care of his little sisters. So his dad was upset that I was staying there, eating their food, and not helping with anything. I called the workers and I said, hey, I'm in the city. And they were happy and grateful to know that I was safe and okay. So I'm like, I need help. I'm staying here and I'm not going to go anywhere. And they're like, okay. They ended up sending a PO to the Safeway closest to where I was. They're like, okay, this girl's gonna keep running away and putting herself in danger. I did that for a couple months at his place, but again, we drank still. Me and my kid's dad, we partied and we'd beat each other up. It was so ugly. It was so bad to the point I couldn't break up with him because I didn't want to. But he broke up with me. I remember I scratched his face up so bad and he just kind of was like, hey, like, F this. So he kicked me out and I called the worker and I was like, hey, like, I think I'm ready to like settle down now and come back. And she was like, oh, I'm so happy to hear this. She's like, there's this new independent living program. You'll be living in an apartment with another young lady. At this time, I'm like 16. I was like, cool, okay. And so she picked me up and then I moved into this place right away. I had a roommate. This young lady was from Hobima, same age as me. 2 weeks into living there, I find out I'm pregnant with my daughter. When I told him I was pregnant, he said, F that, you're just trying to keep me. He didn't believe me because I lied about a pregnancy before with him. This time I was really pregnant. So I was upset. He was like, she's just lying. And so I hated him. Like, oh my God, F you, I'm really pregnant. I'm like, whatever, I don't need him. For the first couple of months being pregnant, I made it past 12 weeks. The workers, they initially didn't want me to keep the baby. Like, they were encouraging me to get an abortion, but I didn't want an abortion. I knew I wanted that baby. Ever since I lost my first baby, I really wanted a baby. I think a part of me growing up the way I did, I know that sounds selfish, but at the time I didn't understand it. I kept praying to Creator to have a baby, and I got a baby. First 2 months I was alone. He eventually came back because I was really pregnant, and we tried to work it out. Like, yeah, I was sober my entire pregnancy. He had his addiction still. He'd take off. We were still in a relationship. He'd come over and visit, even though he wasn't allowed in my apartment. Eventually, they allowed him to come around. They were just approving things, I guess. Back in the beginning, they're like, no boys allowed. But the more further I went into my pregnancy, the more they started accepting. And I had a roommate, right? My roommate didn't like that he was around. She hated it. What they did for her was they moved her into her own apartment. It was a big deal for her. She didn't want him around, and we fought. We were still toxic, even though I was pregnant and sober. I ended up being in that apartment alone. As my pregnancy was getting further down, workers approved him living with me in that place. Now that I think about it, I'm like, holy shit, they did a lot for me. So he ended up moving in. He started working with his dad. His dad was a concrete finisher, and so he started doing the same thing. So he was making good money. He eventually got kind of sober. He did kind of get his stuff together towards the end. And when my daughter was born, he was so happy and proud of his little family. I remember those days, and I remember 3 weeks after having her, I didn't breastfeed because she just wouldn't latch. The feeling of breastfeeding, I just couldn't do it. I had my friends. I don't want to blame them, but I remember getting talked into like, hey, you need a break. My daughter's 3 weeks old. And so I ended up going out. I ended up drinking with my friends, came back, and he was so mad. I started slowly doing things like that, and then he started slowly doing things like that. We ended up breaking up. He ended up actually going to jail before her first birthday. He was in jail for 15 months. He missed her first birthday. We were broken up. In that timeline, I actually started dating other people, and I was in the closet alcoholic at that time. I never touched drugs like at that age. Like 17, 18, being a young mom, I didn't like touch the drugs until like my late teenage years, like maybe 19, 20. I loved alcohol. Like, I was in the closet alcoholic. I would still go to school. Like, I ended up going to Braemar. I ended up going to Inner City, Boyle Street. I'd go to school all week, and then on the weekend, I would party. Because my kid's dad, like his mom, she ended up getting sober like down the road, like when our daughter was like 1, 2. So she helped me a lot. She used to babysit my daughter all the time. Like, whenever I wanted to go out, she'd take my daughter. So the addictions just kind of got worse, especially after turning 18. Every weekend I'd be going out, I'd be clubbing. When I started clubbing, that's where the drugs came in. I started messing around with coke, and it got worse, but again, in the closet, to the point where when my workers started noticing, they were getting reports. Me being a youth in care, they got calls from people that I was doing this and doing that. They would tell me, okay, we got word that you're doing this. You need to stop, or we're not going to help you. So I would lie. Like I said, I was an in-closet person, and I always made myself to seem like I wasn't an addict, like an alcoholic. I always did up myself up. I always had a nice home. I went to my programs, went to school, did whatever. After that had happened, I remember getting my first child welfare call in my early 20s when it was kind of getting bad. Eventually, when I was 21, I moved to Vancouver. Just got out of a relationship. I was in and out of many relationships. It was so bad. So in the early years, my daughter, she was young, but she met so many of my boyfriends. Probably wasn't the best thing for her, right? But she remembers that too. Sometimes we talk about it. After the relationship that I was in for 8 months, we broke up. It was a really bad breakup. My daughter was 4 at the time. I was 21. I ended up driving me and my daughter all the way to Vancouver. I ended up staying with a friend out there who was from Good Fish. He was my gay friend. He was transgender. He opened up his door for us. We stayed with him for a bit. It didn't work out for him in that city. He ended up getting kicked out of school. His mom came all the way to Vancouver to pick him up, and we were left in his little apartment. I knew that I couldn't stay there because I couldn't afford the rent there. So I ended up walking around the community in Vancouver. I found an Indigenous program out there. I just kept walking around, like, need to figure some, like, survivor mode for me and my little girl. I went to a Ubuntu in Vancouver, and they told me about this Native Mom Center. It's a shelter, a second stage living. They're like, go there, go. They sent me there. Me and my daughter walked over there. They gave us the address, and it was really fast. Like, I literally told them what was going. I talked to, like, an intake worker there, and there was a room available. The next day, we moved in. Just things like that. Like, in my journey of, like, survival mode and, like, moving around, things always, like, worked out for me. I feel like I always had somebody watching over me. I swear to God, literally things would just happen so fast. When I wanted to do good, the doors would open for me when I tried really hard. But when I was in a bad position, drinking, bad things happen. Good karma happened when I was doing good things. Bad karma would happen when I was doing bad things. I understand that now. Anyway, so moved into this place. We lived there for 1 year. I ended up going to school out there for 1 year. June, we moved into that an Indigenous mother place. And I started school in September, got accepted for acting school, doing so good. September, October, November, December, Christmas came. So me and my daughter were like, let's go visit family back in Edmonton. Let's go back down. I paid for our plane ticket. It was my daughter's first time on the plane. She loved it. So we came down and we stayed with my kid's dad's mom and his dad. At that time, they were back together and they had their little place in the north side. So his dad came and picked us up at the airport. And then guess who I see? Guess who I fell back in love with? Her dad. I'm not trying to blame him. Trauma bond, trauma love, I just couldn't seem to get away from him. Like, when I see him, I just fall in love all over again for him. Anyway, we went back home. The trip was done. But after going back to Vancouver, our little vacation was done. Of course, I missed him. My daughter missed her dad. She was, she barely knew him, but she knew that was dad. So, of course, my trauma, what's the word? Left it kind of mood at the time. I ended up giving up on school. I ended up giving what we had up and moved back to Edmonton. We stayed with his dad and his mom. I got pregnant right away. In that time, my daughter, that was the first time she ever got apprehended from me. Before I got pregnant, though, it was like 2 months prior. Like, I stayed with his mom and his dad, and whenever I wanted to go out, I would leave my daughter with his mom. So in that time of me and him, still toxic, still drinking together, I remember he took off and then I took off. Like, I feel like my son coming into our life helped us kind of like get our daughter back. Because if I didn't get pregnant, who knows how it would have went. Like, he's our little savior for Sakalo. Anyway, things went really good. We got her back. She was in care for, I think I was 7 months pregnant when we got her back. And we had our own place. We moved out of his parents' place finally. We got our own little basement suite. He was working again, doing the same job with his dad, making good money. And we ended up moving into a bigger place, like a really nice house in the south side. It was so beautiful. I ended up having Darian. Addictions came after I had him. After breastfeeding for 2 weeks, I wanted to have a drink. I started having wine like every other night, and the addiction started. Then I wanted to go out with my friends, and the drugs came. At that time, me and my kid's dad, we ended up breaking up. I broke up with him. I didn't want to be with him anymore. I don't know why. I kind of chose alcohol, and I just wanted that freedom and didn't want to be with him anymore. So I kicked him out. I couldn't afford that place without him. When we were broken up, he would take the kids, like he was still kind of co-parenting with me. I would leave him with the kids. I'd run off and do whatever I was doing. But then I started getting into drugs, bad drugs. It wasn't just coke anymore. I was drinking one night with these friends of mine, and that's when crystal meth kind of came into the picture. That's what really messed me up. It really made me start to not care anymore. It was like once in a while at first. So like him were broken up and I was still partying. And in that time, I wasn't living at that house anymore. Me just couch hopping with my 2 kids. Just a really unhealthy lifestyle. When the kids were with him, they would be with him and his parents. And it was a rough little go there for my kids when they're little, now that I think about it. I already knew that I put them through a lot. One of the biggest things for me is hard to accept all that pain that I put onto them, all that trauma that they experienced. They witnessed a lot of domestic violence between me and their dad. My daughter, she's witnessed me partying a lot. Till this day, we'll talk about that because she'll bring it up randomly. I just let her reminisce. I let her talk to me about it. And I try my best to be understanding, but it's still hard to hear these things that you've done, right? She's like, oh, Mom, I remember, I don't think you knew that I knew, but I remember seeing you doing that drug. I have to listen, right? Because it's her healing. She's wanting to clarify things. But yeah, so that same cycle of lifestyle just kind of kept continuing. I asked my kid's dad, family, to watch the kids for me. At that point, I was getting deeper into the drug. I was in the closet about it. Nobody knew I was doing that drug. I abandoned the kids with their dad's family.
Yeah.
Eventually, they're like, hey, you got to come get your kids. You're not helping us with money. We're going to call child welfare. So I went, picked up my kids, and again, place to place with my kids. So Kayla was camping with her auntie and uncle, and my son being with his cookum. The uncle, that was his mom who had Darian. So his mom was watching my son, and him and his wife were watching Zakaylo. So Zakaylo, she's witnessed a lot. She's been through a lot at this point in time. She vented to them. She started telling them what's going on. They were sober. They felt for her. So what did? They called child welfare. And honestly, I don't blame them because of the situation I was in, what I was doing. It wasn't good. They got apprehended because of like the history of their cookum, her history and involvement with child welfare and her criminal record. She wasn't eligible to keep my son. My daughter ended up living with the aunt and uncle who had her. They opened their home up as a kinship home for her, like right from the get-go. They couldn't take my son in at the time. My son, he went right into a foster home. He was like that for a year. That was the second time my daughter went into care. First time for my son. That's kind of where the addictions got worse for me. The first 2 years of them being in care, I was right into that lifestyle. The first year I barely visited my kids. 2020, this is when COVID happened. I started selling drugs. I started getting involved in gangs. My boyfriend was a gang member. Just a really rough lifestyle. I never see my kids because I've always felt so guilty. I didn't want to bring that energy around them. I always had this thing in my mind like, oh, I don't want to bring bad spirits. I always thought like that. Maybe that was probably part of the being paranoid from the drugs. I always had that spiritual thoughts being around them. And their energy clean. The first year, I never really visited them. The lifestyle I lived, I didn't want to bring that around them. A year into it, at that point, my daughter hated me. She didn't want to talk to me when I did have the virtual visits because when COVID was around, it was virtual. She didn't want to be a part of that. My son, he was so cute. We'd have virtual visits in his foster home. My daughter not wanting to talk to me. Like that really messed me up. What I would do in order to numb the pain and me missing them, I would get really high, really drunk. And in this time of them being in care, I was being brought to court. I went to every court. Every time they said I could be there, I would show up. I don't know if they could tell, but I would be drunk and I'd be high. Being drunk, I'd have to get high so it would level out the drunkenness. I'd always show up and it was just that lifestyle. They were in care for 3 years. My daughter living with the aunt and uncle, I truly believe that they're brainwashing her to hate me because she's always wanted to talk to me. She never did that until she started staying with them. So that was a big eye-opener for me. I knew that they wanted to keep her. They're trying to adopt. That was their goal. I was kind of ashamed for them being in care. I never reached out to my family, like my late Cookum Ernestine, all the aunties and the uncles that raised me. Some of them worked in child welfare, like my Auntie Louise Large, my Auntie Marion. I knew they worked in child welfare. I was scared to tell them, but I knew I needed help. Like this aunt and uncle are trying to like brainwash my kid. I know I'm messed up, but like, damn, my daughter deserves to talk to me. And it just didn't feel right. Even though I was an addict, I knew something was wrong. So I reached out to child welfare in Saddle Lake. I told them what's going on and they wanted to help. And so they used Bill C-92 in order to get my children's files transferred. My auntie Gloria White, she was willing to open her home for my kids because they were under TGOs. They fought hard to get my kids' file transferred. My kids started having visits with my auntie Gloria to transition into her home. My daughter was going through a lot mentally. At the time, she was 11 and she was very suicidal. I remember finally I was able to talk to her because she was in the hospital. They sent a driver to pick me up and the driver drove me all the way to the hospital to go see my daughter. She was admitted because she was suicidal. My auntie Gloria met me there. We were visiting with her. And then all of a sudden, first time seeing my daughter, like maybe over a year in person, she just broke down. The truth just came out. She just missed me. I honestly thought she hated me because when I would try and reach out to her aunt and uncle, they'd be like, oh, no, she doesn't want to talk to you. But when she seen me, it was like everything just felt right. From the hospital, she moved in with my auntie. My auntie took her home. She didn't want to go back to her auntie and uncle. Till this day, I don't know why. We haven't had that conversation. I don't think anything bad happened. I hope not. Then it was my son's turn. The file was transferred. My son moved out of that foster home, moved in with my auntie. My kids were living with my auntie on the reserve inside the lake. Things were going good. My daughter didn't like living with my auntie. My auntie's a little strict, so she didn't like it. My auntie's old school, so Kayla didn't want to stay there, so she ended up moving into a group home in Frog Lake. And she stayed there for a year. My son stayed there the entire time. My son loved it there. Even though she was a little strict, till this day says Cookham's was the best home I ever lived in. So like, him too, I let him reminisce. Yeah. I let him tell me. He remembers everything too. And so the third year of them being in care, Arian lived with my Auntie Gloria for 1 year, or maybe longer than a year. Zakayla was in the group home. Again, she started not wanting me to call her because I kept lying. You know, I kept telling my kids, like, hey, I'm going to get better. Like, I'm going to get you back. You're not going to be living there any longer. I kept saying the same thing over and over to my daughter and my son. Eventually, she was like, I can't do this. She told her caseworker to tell me, I don't want to talk anymore. Tell her not to call the group home. My daughter wanted to cut all ties with me. That was really hard. I took it really hard. It smartened me up till this day. I remember I was so sick because every day I drink hard liquor. I was living in an apartment. At that time, I was a kind of a functioning addict. I had my own apartment on the West End through an urban housing program for people that are with low income or addictions. It was like a party place. I hated my life at that point. My daughter didn't want to talk to me. My son kept crying every time we called, because no matter what, he'd always want to talk to me, but he'd cry because some days I would not call him. It was messing him up. The reason why I didn't call, I'd be too high or too drunk to call him. So it was in the beginning of April. I was so hungover in the morning. I was so high. I lived by a liquor store. I remember it was a bright sunny morning. I'm like, okay, I need to walk to the liquor store and get a Mickey or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'm walking from my apartment. The sun was rising. The sun was shining on my face, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm so hungover. I just started crying. I was like, I hate this. But I just remember telling myself, I freaking hate my life. I hate that I'm sick. I'm like, okay, God, I know I haven't talked to you in a long time, and I know I stopped believing in you a long time ago, but I really need your help. I really, really want to get sober. I really want to get my kids back, but I need help because it's so hard for me. It's so hard for me to be sober. I can't spend an hour without not being sober, and I don't know why. I don't know why I'm like this. I just gave it all. I told God, I apologized to him, and I said, please give me the strength to go to the doctor, to get a medical done, and please help me get into a rehab. Please help me. I had this in my mind. I have this plan. I know what to do. And please help me make that happen. And so I go to the liquor store. I get what I need. Yeah, me opening up for the first time to God. Like we all pray to Creator. I believe in Creator, but for me, it was God who I opened up to. That's who I chose to open up to. That's who has been guiding me. And since then, I have my faith in God. It's so powerful because never in my life at that time, being an addict so deep into that lifestyle, would think that I was ever going to get out. Going to the doctors, I was drinking. The doctor didn't know. He probably smelt it on me, but I was getting the medical done. I remember venting to this doctor because they have to do the psych part. You tell them what's going on. And so at that point, the doctor diagnosed me. He said, you have ADHD, there's bipolar or something like that. But honestly, I think that was from the drugs. The way I was talking to him, I was explaining things, and him diagnosing me. Now I think I'm not bipolar. Yeah, I have ADHD, but bipolar, I don't know. That really bothered me. Anyway, he prescribed me medication. He gave me my medical. I researched these rehabs. I did everything on my own. I chose Kapown. I didn't want to go to a rehab close by because I tried going to rehab like close by the city. I got welfare one day. I called up a cab and he picked me up at Poundmakers. So like I knew that I needed to go to a rehab far away, like somewhere away from my triggers and the lifestyle I was living. So I called the place, I had my medical, I emailed it to them, and literally, I kid you not, I got accepted like 2 days after. While this was happening, 2 weeks prior to going to rehab, I already knew I was getting evicted because me being an addict, being never paying rent, I think I was a couple months behind on the rent, and they finally just gave me my eviction notice. I was in a really bad relationship at that time. I don't like to talk about, but this guy that I was with, he was really abusive. He was way older than me. Like, it was definitely high, and I was definitely an addict, you know? Like, now that I think about it, I'm like, holy, like, that's why I hated my life. I didn't care. That guy I was dating, he was way, way, way older than me, and he was just involved in a gang. He was abusive. I have a scar in the back of my head from his rings. I remember he hit me, so that is like my scar from my last abusive relationship. I really was so done with that lifestyle. When I finally reached out to God and prayed, I really believe he didn't want me to live that lifestyle anymore too. Like, he wanted the best for me, and I know that because like where I am today. So it kind of just worked out, and I didn't tell the workers until I knew I was sure that I was going to go. It was Monday. And because Friday was the 28th, Monday is when I called the caseworker, and I was like, hey, I need a ride to rehab. I explained the details and everything. And she's like, okay. She was so happy for me when I would try. She would always be encouraging, and she would just be there for me. She got me in the Canalta in St. Paul. My kids got to spend the night with me at the hotel. The on-call would come and do their checks. They'd come and do checkups on me. I was there for 2 nights with my kids at the Canalta. My daughter, she didn't want to come at first, but surprisingly, my daughter actually came. I was so surprised. I was like, holy. So it was the best feeling in the world. Like, if anything, that just helped me get to rehab. The last night and morning, I was hungover because everything was coming down, being in the hotel and with the kids, and yeah, it was the worst hangover in my life. I was so used to the bottle, that lifestyle of every day for months and months. So the morning of going to rehab, it was 5 o'clock that I had to get picked up because I had to be in Kapown at 10 a.m. My 2 kids, they had their separate drivers. I had a separate driver. We all had to wake up 5 in the morning and check out of the Canalta. They went on their way. Me and my driver, we went all the way to Kapown. Another thing of why I believe in God so much too. The first night I was there in the detox, because the men were staying in one cabin detoxing, the women were staying in one cabin to detox. The first night I had this worst nightmare you could possibly think of. It was about the rehab. So whatever it was like trying to scare me to get out of there. It was trying to scare me out of the rehab place. It was those bad spirits trying to make me be scared of the area. I woke up crying, and I was like, holy. So what did I do? I prayed to God. I'm like, I had a bad dream last night. Can you please protect me? Can you please make those bad dreams go away? And I never had a bad dream after that. Another thing I prayed to God about, because we had to be there for 7 days, 1 week to detox. We were in those cabins for a while. It was like the 4th night there. In order to use the bathroom, the washroom is far. You have to bring like a lamp all in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I'm scared of the dark and the bushes, so I prayed to God. God, please help me with my bladder so I don't have to wake up and go to. And all of a sudden, I kid you not, I'm not kidding. Anything I asked just to stay at that rehab to help me be comfortable, I prayed to God, and all of a sudden I didn't have to pee in the middle of the night. So little things like that. I love God, and I'm grateful that He was able to guide me and to answer these prayers and to guide me into being where I am today. I ended up staying there for 6 weeks. It was supposed to be an 8-week program, 42 days or something like that. 42 or 46. After 2 weeks of being there and being sober, I knew then that I was going to be sober. I've never been this sober in years, as long as I could remember. So I'm like, okay, I can do this. I ain't going back to that lifestyle anymore. F that. I don't like being hungover. I don't miss that. I don't miss the lifestyle. I don't miss the guy I was with. Just everything. I just knew I was, okay, that's going to be behind me. But being sober for the 2 weeks, I started missing my kids. The more days I was being sober, the more closer I felt like I was getting to my kids. I could feel it. 6 weeks into the program, I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm 6 weeks sober. I'm like, okay, I need to be with my kids. Like, I'm gonna be sober. I know it. I don't need to be here anymore. Thank you for this place. I signed myself out. I called the workers. I was like, okay, I kind of did something, and I am kind of stuck now. you guys kind of have to pick me up. I'm not trying to go to Edmonton. I'm trying to go back to Saddle Lake. I just was straight up with them, like, I want to be close to my kids. I need to be close. I've been sober so long. I just need to see my kids. I just want to be around them. And so they're like, okay. They got a driver to come pick me up. And lo and behold, it was my cousin, my late Cookham Ernestine, who passed away a long time ago, her daughter's daughter. I remember playing with her when we were kids. Like, I have memories of this cousin, and I haven't seen her since she was little, like since we were both little. She was my driver, so she picked me up and it was a 5-hour drive all the way from Kapow, and we were catching up and we just had an amazing conversation. They ended up putting me into Wet'suwet'en. It's like a family reunification home in Saddle Lake, and I ended up staying there, and the caseworker was like, it's court ordered that you have to finish rehab if you ever want your kids back. I didn't know. I was like, okay, I guess I wasn't going to go back there. But what kind of like program do I have to be? Can I do an outpatient program? She's like, yeah, as long as it's rehab. Like, you have to get some kind of certificate because we know you're sober. We know you're doing good, but this is what's court ordered. So I'm like, okay. Everything just kind of worked out. The week being at that Wet'suwet'en, all of a sudden this matrix program opened up. It was around already, but they were opening up a new term or a new session there at the Healing Lodge in Saddle Lake, and I applied. It was my kids worker who told me about it. She signed me up for that. A week being back, I was in the program. They come pick me up at Wet'suwet'en, take me, and that's what I did from July and August. It was a 2-month program, and I ended up marbling out. I got the certificate and everything. In the time of living at Wet'suwet'en, every second weekend my kids would come over to the reunification home and come visit me. Weekend visits. It started the first month every 2 weeks. Then it started to become all the time, like every weekend. So I ended up marbling out of that place on August 4th for the Matrix program. And then my kids came back into my care at Wet'suwet'en August 12th. And in that timeline of me being at the Matrix program, I wanted to continue something. I'm like, I can't just not do anything. In my early 20s, before I took off to Vancouver, I wanted to be a social worker. So I applied to Blue Quills a long time ago, and really, I think it was like 2021. I got accepted a long time ago, but I ended up moving to Vancouver and choosing a different path at the time. So anyway, I applied to Blue Quills. And I got accepted. I was like, what the heck? I had to find funding and everything. Funding ended up working out. Things in my life were just going good, like working out. And I'm so grateful till this day because I love my life. I love my kids and the journey that I've been on. It's been amazing. So I got accepted. The kids are back in my care, living with me at the Wet'suwet'en. We lived there for 1 year. And the entire time I was in school for my first year, the staff at Wet'suwet'en, I love them. Those women, I'm so grateful for Wakutuan. I'm so grateful to the caseworker because these people in my life, they helped me get to school. I didn't have a vehicle at the time. The kids caseworker approved for the staff to take me to school every single day for the first year. That's how I got through my first year, was because of Wet'suwet'en. In that timeline, I applied for housing. I never thought I was going to get it approved or anything, but I got approved, I got accepted, but it wasn't until January, February is when I found out that I got approved for housing. I applied for school. It was the summer I applied for housing. So anyway, got the good news in January-ish. They're like, but your house isn't going to be ready until May. So May comes around and they're like, your house isn't going to be ready until June. I'm like, okay, yay. That's in that time when the kids came back to my care in October 18th, we had court. They were legally mine October 18th of 2022. And what we did was a family enhancement program after the kids returning. I applied for their child tax. I got a back pay that January 2023. It was a big back pay, and that's how I bought my little red car. I insured it like a month after things started working out. Come time I had to do my practicum, I got my car just in time to drive myself because I was scared they weren't going to approve that because I was on a family enhancement agreement. They could only approve so much. Anyway, things just kind of were working out. Anyway, there's only a certain amount of time for family enhancements to keep being signed. So come June, I came back from my practicum and they're like, you got to move out tomorrow. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, they can't re-sign your family enhancement. That's the bad news. I was so mad because I didn't understand it, right? Now I understand. You can't stay because your kids aren't in care. You have nothing to do with child welfare anymore. So at that point, in this time, this 1 year of living at Wheatsea, I started building my relationship with my family, reconnecting with my late Cookham Ernestine's children. I reconnected with my aunties and my uncles and my cousins. Right away, my auntie was like, you could just go stay at your cousin Bert's. He'll take you in. And I'm like, okay. I call him like, hey, cuz, your mom told me I could stay with you. And he's like, what? Okay, I guess you're coming to stay with me. So and I stayed with him. It was only supposed to be for a couple days, couple weeks. My house is supposed to be ready. And I called, they're like, it's not going to be ready until August. So I had to tell my cousin, I just finished my first year in social work. I got a summer student job with the community. I was working upstairs at Wakutu as like just filing and whatever, right? That's how things started going. The kids not being in care, no family enhancement. I have a vehicle. August comes. My summer student program ended because it's only 1 month, right? That you can work in the summer under this summer student thing. So my cousin was like, just apply to be a driver. Apply at Wheatsea. I was like, really? They won't hire me. I just moved out. I ended up applying. I was like, I called up, the manager supervisor at Wheatsea, and she's like, yeah, just come drop off your resume. And like, cause they witnessed me going to school all year. Like they witnessed my success. So I ended up getting hired at being a support staff at Wheatsea. I ended up starting to do drives with my little res beater. End of August, my cousin's like, so what are you going to do? Like, when's your house going to be ready? I call and then they're like, sorry, your house isn't going to be ready until October. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I told my cousin, I'm like, all right, cuz the house isn't going to be ready until October. But he didn't mind. Like, honestly, I don't think he minded at all. He really enjoyed us staying there. We come October, I called them. They're like, your house isn't going to be ready until December. I felt so bad. I'm already in my second year at social work. I'm still doing drives on the side. I'm still working at Wheatsea. I'm still trying to. My cousin, he's honestly one of my biggest supports. My cousin Bert and my cousin Nikki and their mom Marion and my auntie Gloria. Those 4 people, I must say, in the first year of coming back, they've been my biggest supports. They're my go-to. They're my people. And I'm so grateful for them. I wouldn't have been able to get this far if it wasn't for them. But anyway, I felt so guilty. At that point, I'm like, I need to move out. I'm so sorry. I felt at that time like we're invading his home. So I reached out to chief and council, and to them, and I started crying. I was like, I'm living with my cousin Bert, and like, da, 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 da. And then they're like, okay, we'll help you. Like they sincerely felt so bad with me, or for me. I remember one of the counselors was like, I'm gonna call up my sister. He called his sister and was like, hey, like I have a young mom and her 2 children who are pretty much gonna be homeless. He kind of just vouched for me, and they ended up moving us into this little tiny cabin. We stayed in this little house. It's right beside the employment training place, that one that all those students built. We literally lived in that little house for 2 weeks. It was like the best time. My kids loved that little experience. It was kind of cool. But then all of a sudden, a couple days before December 1st, they're like, hey, your house is finally ready. You can move in. It was the best thing I ever heard. We moved into our little house. I ended up graduating with my diploma. Things are going really good. I ended up doing my second year practicum like at Wakutu. I was building those like little relationships with them upstairs, and like towards the end of my practicum, like I was getting experience of being like a kinship worker already. Like I could go over a file, like getting that real hands-on like experience. With that experience and my practicum almost ending, they're like, do you want to do contract work with us? Like you have your diploma, you could do contract work. So they ended up hiring me as a contract contract worker, as a kinship, like an intern kinship worker. So before I actually got officially hired at Wakutuin as a kinship worker, I was on a contract with them. They couldn't officially hire me without actually interviewing me, and they weren't interviewing anytime soon. All summer I was already doing kinship work. Come the end of July, they put out the notice of like they're hiring for these positions. So I applied. I really want to be in kinship because like I had that little experience already. I did the interview. I believe it went really good. I ended up finding out a week after that I got I got hired. They're like, you're officially going to be an employee next week on August 12th. It was awesome. Ever since August 12th, I've been officially an employee and that's my job now is I'm a kinship. Well, technically I'm a kinship practitioner, but I just like saying kinship worker because us DFNA Indigenous people, it's kinship worker or support worker. But doing my delegation training, the correct Muniao term is kinship practitioner. But yeah, that's my story. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being patient.
It's all good. Honestly, like your experiences, I connect with them, especially with the parts where you're talking about praying to Creator and having those moments of mercy. It that really hits home. I've been in those situations as well where I'm tired of this Creator, and then just how things just line up to help you, right? Creator's like, okay, you're ready. All right, things are gonna work out now, and it's amazing how everything's like full circle because now you're working in kinship. It's like everything that I've experienced led me up to this point. You know exactly what to do and how to do it. And especially when it comes to helping, right? That's it's like full circle moment. It's so beautiful.
Agamemo, don't give up.
Akamema, keep trying. I love it. Right. Well, thank you for tuning in. For the next episode, we are going to be chatting with uh Dr. Vincent Clare about Bill C-92. If you want to listen to that episode, lock in and hit the next button. Hi, and we'll see you again.